When most people imagine Paris, they picture wide boulevards, elegant stone buildings, tree-lined avenues, and grand city views. But Paris did not always look like this. In the mid 1800s, the city was crowded, dirty, and chaotic. Medieval streets twisted through packed neighborhoods where disease spread easily and traffic barely moved. Then one man changed everything. His name was Georges-Eugène Haussmann, and the transformation he led would make Paris one of the most famous cities in the world, while also pushing thousands of poor residents out of their homes. This is the story of Haussmann's Paris, the beauty, the modernization, and the darker side hidden beneath the boulevards. Before Haussmann, Paris looked very different. Many neighborhoods still followed medieval street patterns, narrow alleys only a few feet wide, overcrowded housing, and almost no sanitation. Diseases like cholera spread rapidly through the city. In fact, Paris suffered devastating cholera epidemics during the 19th century. Historian David Pinkney described pre Ottoman Paris as a city suffering from congestion, filth, and inadequate circulation. And there was another problem. The city was politically dangerous. The narrow streets made it easy for revolutionaries to build barricades during uprisings like the French Revolution and the revolutions of 1830 and 1848. So when Emperor Napoleon III came to power, he wanted a capital that reflected strength, order, and modernity. To accomplish that, he turned to Haussmann. Beginning in 1853, Haussmann launched one of the largest urban redesign projects in history. Entire neighborhoods were demolished, massive boulevards sliced through the old city, new sewer systems, parks, trains, stations, and apartment buildings transformed Paris into a modern capital. Historian Patrice de Montcalm notes that more than 20,000 houses were destroyed during the renovations, but Haussmann believed drastic measures were necessary. He famously argued that Paris needed air, light, and circulation, and in many ways the project worked. The city became cleaner, traffic moved more efficiently, fresh water systems improved public health. The sewer network expanded dramatically, reducing disease and improving sanitation. Parks like the Bois de Boulogne gave Parisians access to green spaces for recreation and health. Modern Paris was born. Haussmann's architecture created the iconic Paris aesthetic we recognize today. Uniform, cream-colored stone buildings lined the boulevards. Balconies were carefully regulated. Building heights were standardized to create visual harmony. The streets themselves became theatrical spaces, designed for movement, visibility, and grandeur. Scholar Marshall Berman described Haussmann's Paris as the, quote, the capital of modernity. Artists and writers became fascinated by the transformed city. Painters like Gustave Caillebotte captured the new boulevards filled with movement, crowds, and modern urban life. Paris became a symbol of sophistication and modern design, and cities around the world copied Haussmann's ideas. From Buenos Aires to Washington, D.C., planners adopted broad avenues and monumental urban layouts inspired by Paris. But modernization came with a cost, and the people who paid the highest price were the poor. Entire working class neighborhoods disappeared beneath redevelopment projects. Thousands of residents were displaced as rents increased in the newly rebuilt city center. The wealthy could only afford the new apartments. The poor often could not. So many working class Parisians were pushed towards the outskirts of the city. Scholar Yona Freemark explains that Osmanization intensified social segregation by separating wealthy and poor neighborhoods more sharply than before. Even the architecture reflected class divisions. In Osman apartment buildings, the wealthier residents lived on the lower floors with larger rooms and easier access. Servants and poorer tenants occupied the cramped upper floors near the roof. The redesign of Paris wasn't just architectural, it reshaped the social geography of the city itself. There was also a political motive behind the redesign. Those wide boulevards weren't only beautiful, they were strategic. Broad streets made it harder for revolutionaries to build barricades and easier for troops to move through the cities. Some historians argue that Osman's Paris functioned as a form of social control. The state could monitor and suppress unrest more effectively in the redesigned city. In other words, architecture became political. The same streets that tourists admire today were also tools of imperial authority. Osman transformed Paris into one of the world's most admired cities. He modernized infrastructure, improved sanitation, and created the elegant urban landscape millions visit every year. But beneath the beauty was displacement, inequality, and political control. The poor were pushed aside so a new imperial vision of Paris could emerge. And that tension still exists in cities today. Who benefits from urban renewal and who gets left behind? Osman's Paris forces us to confront both sides of modernization, the brilliance of transformation and the human cost hidden beneath it.